welcome back to another episode of Something Super Podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Mark.
So guys, this week we decided to bring on a third host who's going to be staying with us for the remainder of the podcast. This is our buddy Jay. We've known him for quite a while. Jay?
Hi, I'm Jay. I kind of got into comics through Superman and now have just fallen way too deep down the hole. I watch everything from DC, Marvel, to even Star Wars, and have now gotten into D&D.
Awesome. So we brought Jay on to sort of help lighten the load a little bit. Mark and I were getting a little bit of the, fatigue, I guess you could say, doing all the research on our own. So 3 brains are better than 2, or half of a brain, if you want to consider some of us. So this week we're going to be speaking about the Mandalorian, episodes 1, 2, and 3 from season 2, and then a little recap of season 1. So thus far, we've seen Bo-Katan. So for those of us who have seen the Clone Wars, obviously not Jason, and for a little bit, we didn't really know what direction Mandalorian was going. I like that Ahsoka Tano's sort of been thrown in here a little bit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. So the fact that they actually brought Bo-Katan to life and she looked phenomenal as far as just bringing the animated version of her to real life. Like, it's literally like a copy and paste into the real world. I'm really excited to see where they go. Are they going to follow more of the Night Owl storyline? Are they going to go back and look at her time with like the Death Watch? Obviously, the dark saber that Moff Gideon has plays a big role into the history of Mandalore. Like you said, Steve, got Ahsoka Tano, who was Anakin's apprentice, who was one of the only ones to survive Order 66. Like, there's so many directions that they can go that I'm amped, and I know a lot of other people are too.
Yeah, definitely. So, Jay, you said you've watched The Mandalorian, correct?
Yes, I've seen The Mandalorian.
All right, so now that you're new on the show, we're going to throw you straight into the fire. What are some of your fan theories for season 2?
So after talking to you guys a little bit, now I'm starting to fall into like kind of what you guys are saying with I keep forgetting the person's name that was Anakin's apprentice.
Ahsoka Tano.
That is who? Ahsoka Tano?
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka Tano.
I promise you can't spell it.
I promise you I can't spell it either. So after hearing this, I have a feeling that this is going to revolve a lot around the Darksaber that we saw last season and Ahsoka Tano trying to get it for her own home planet. Now, how deep this goes, I'm not 100% sure, and I don't even think I could guess.
So as we were saying earlier, it ties a lot into the Clone Wars, which you haven't watched, and that's fine. You'll have to catch up on that soon.
I'm working on it. I am working on it.
Basically, the Darksaber is like, the ruler of Mandalore's primary weapon. Like, that is, the signifying factor of like who runs the fucking planet.
Well, actually, I did a little bit more research into the Darksaber itself, just because I'm a nerd who enjoys knowing all the different kind of sabers and their backstories. So the Darksaber was actually created by the first Mandalorian to ever be accepted into the Jedi Order. So basically, his name was Tar Vizsla. Then what happened was there was the whole Jedi versus Mandalorian war and all that. And then basically, once Tar Vizsla died, it was held onto by the Jedi. Well, eventually his house, like the House of Vizsla, invaded the Jedi Temple. They found the Darksaber and then claimed it. And then that's where they used it as like, hey, here's who's going to be like ruling Mandalore, that kind of like showed their status. Well, eventually it transpired different hands and things like that. And it was actually wielded by Maul for a while. And Maul's actually had it on multiple different occasions. And even you'll see it in Clone Wars. He actually sets up pretty much a coup to take over Mandalore and become the ruler. He eventually uses the Darksaber to kill the Duchess Satine, which is Bo-Katan's sister, who was ruling at the time, and Obi-Wan Kenobi's love interest. And now somehow Moff Gideon has it. Now, how he got it is still unknown, and that's my theory on where it's going to go. So at the end of, not to spoil anything for you, Jay, but at the end of Clone Wars, at the end of the new season, you actually do see Maul escape. So there's a chance that in this Mandalorian universe, Maul is still out there. And there's a key line from episode 3 in season 2 where Mando's like, I'm not going to Mandalore, that's planet's cursed. And Bo-Katan replies, that's what they want you to believe. So for me, I feel like we may see Maul come back because him and Ahsoka have a complicated past. And you have Moff Gideon and Mando and Bo-Katan in that triangle of hatred and love, or whatever you want to call it. So
another cool thing to note is that Paz Vizsla, who I believe is Tar Vizsla's offspring or relative of some sort, was actually the heavy gunner Mandalorian from the first season, the one that confronted him in the beginning and got into the fight with him in front of the armorer. So little Easter egg.
So Paz Vizsla is the leader of the Death Watch who worked with Maul to overcome the coup. However, the guy you're talking about, I forget his name specifically, he was in the sector of he was in the clan Vizsla, which was ran by Paz Vizsla.
But yeah, I mean, so to your point of how Moff Gideon ended up with the Darksaber, he was one of the Galactic Empire's generals or someone running a task force that basically headed up the purge in Mandalore. So, he's one of those people that just happened to be right place, right time and ended up with the Darksaber. Super glad they brought that into, film, or I guess in this case, TV canon versus just the, Clone Wars show. And I noticed they're doing that a lot with this show, is they're sort of bringing in extra pieces from video games, from books, from, the cartoons, which I think is fantastic because it's something that George Lucas didn't necessarily do enough. Not that, we can question that man's integrity because he literally created the entire universe. But, I noticed Disney didn't exactly, hit the mark with all of their Star Wars movies.
So do you think Mando's gonna rebuild, as they called it, those guys, the cult, or will he join the regular Mandalorians like we saw with Bo-Katan and her two people with her whose names I do not know?
So realistically speaking, I'd like to see him go the route of Bo-Katan, but I also feel like they're a bit extreme. Like Mando has a set of rules and a moral code that he sort of sticks to. Again, like we spoke about before, it's kind of good to see him grow as a person. Like in the beginning, Mark, you were saying Bo-Katan's this is the way. And he's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. And then at the end of the episode, she says it again and he responds with, this is the way, which, shows his, I guess, growing trust of her. So, I'd like to see them interact again in the future.
I want to see what he's going to do. If he rebuilds his cult, is he going to keep it as strict, or is he actually going to flex a little bit because as you can see, his character is, like you said, growing a little bit and could use a little, could lighten up a little bit, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
So something that I could see happening, honestly, is I could see Mando taking the child to find Ahsoka, because what was it you were saying, Steve, about the planet that she says that she's on is actually a ship, right? So there's two running theories that I have currently that Corvus, again, based on their subtitles, Corvus, was actually a ship from, I believe, Knights of the Old Republic. If I'm not mistaken, don't directly quote me, but it is a Star Wars lore-based ship. Or if they, again, it happens, they typed it incorrectly. Corvis is actually a system with a forest planet in it that the Sith Lords wrote about. It was such an insignificant speck in the space and time that they all had, every Sith library has a book, and in each book is a blaster as a last ditch effort for self-defense. But it all, it's the history of Corvus basically. And that is, again, so there's both of those theories running around. Again, if it is Corvus, there is the ship that she could be on, and it could be Bo-Katan saying, hey, go meet Ahsoka Tano on Corvus. And she gives Ahsoka Tano the heads up, hey, you got someone coming to you, meet him on your terms. All right, yeah, because I could definitely see that falling in line with the way the storyline's going, because obviously during Order 66, all the Jedi got massively fucked, and Ahsoka was able to survive. So the fact that she would be hiding out on either a ship or on just a lesser cared about planet makes complete sense for someone who would be in hiding. Like you saw Yoda on Dagobah, you saw Obi-Wan on Tatooine. Like, they weren't drawing attention to themselves. Some of them even changed their names. Like, a lot of them stopped using the Force because you had the Inquisitors hunting down Jedi. You had Vader, who was just slaughtering them as he was going across the star system when he found them. So that would fall right in line. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is you're going to have Bo-Katan and the Night Owls go to Mandalore to try. I'm assuming that there's going to be some kind of not galactic. Wow. Not
Empire?
Republic. Empire. Yes. Some kind of empire struggle there with Moff Gideon, where he may have either team up with Maul or possibly even team up with Boba Fett, who we saw at the end of season 1. Then you would have Mando and the child go into Ahsoka, and Ahsoka has a history on Mandalore and helping Bo-Katan. So I could see Mandalore playing a huge setting role in this season, and possibly we may see multiple kind of battles and standoffs where you could bring in these powerful people that are still existing in this time.
So with Ahsoka-tan, since we know, or the little bit of from what I've read, she started off with blue sabers, or green sabers, if I'm correct.
Correct.
They went to blue, and then she kind of shunned everybody, and they went to white, and she got rid of them during Order 66, if I'm correct, right?
So what actually happens is she starts off with the green sabers, you're correct.
Okay.
Then there's this whole conspiracy where she actually gets framed for like murder and stuff and is put on trial by the Jedi. So she feels like they're betrayed, and eventually they find out like who actually did it. But Ahsoka feels so betrayed by the Jedi that she leaves the Order. And that's where Anakin keeps her sabers safe for her. Now, the theory is that he either changed out the crystals in them or he just meditated with them to keep his presence to her
come
close.
on, Lilo.
So possibly what could have happened there is by Anakin doing that, turn them blue. However, you'll see at the end of Clone Wars that she fakes her death and leaves them, and they're found by Vader. So she doesn't even have those sabers anymore. The last time that we knew of her having her sabers, they were in the hands of Vader.
All right. So if we see her again, if she actually does show up and has lightsabers, what color are you guys expecting to see?
Personally, I think just to stick with like the original Clone Wars look, probably green to begin with. I think she's going to be one of those long-standing characters, sort of like Cara Dune, who you're going to see multiple times, and we haven't seen her yet this season. But I have definite promise for her to come back. She had a really good on-screen play with, Pedro Pascal. So I think that they did really well together, and they played off of each other really well. So I'd like to see Ahsoka Tano, come in green sabers, maybe disappear for a little bit. Season 3 come back with blue sabers. Like, that would be awesome to see her character build, or even, come in with the blue sabers and be that much closer to becoming that gray Jedi.
I would love to see sabers as a gray Jedi.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the gray because as we all figured out, the Mandalorian takes place 30 years after Episode 3, and it's like 60 years before Episode 4. So it's after Order 66 already happened.
So it's like 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. And then
I thought it was after season 3.
No, so season 1 of The Mandalorian takes place about 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and it's about 9 years after A New Hope. And then it's about 30 years before Force Awakens. So we're not going to see people like Rey and Kylo Ren and stuff like that. So, but I'm completely okay with seeing people, that were huge parts and players in the original Star Wars movies.
You may get references to Luke, though.
That's where we're heading.
Because Luke would have just defeated Vader and the Emperor at that point. So it's very possible his name could still be getting thrown around, because this would be kind of the off period right behind that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, I guess that would be what, right before or right after he became the rank of master in the Jedi?
I believe so. But back to Jay's question about the lightsaber, I doubt it would happen, but I think it'd be really cool if Ahsoka was a gray Jedi and she had maybe like a Sith saber and a Jedi saber. So she always ran she always dual wielded, but it would be cool if maybe like she killed an Inquisitor or defeated like a Sith Lord along the way. She had one blue one and one red one.
Well, if this is the case, then Mandalorian takes place, season 1 would take place 28 years after Clone Wars. So we could definitely see a gray Jedi, I'm hoping. Be something different. Because we always all see the same typical blue, green, and then red for Sith.
And then you got Samuel L. Jackson said, "Fuck you, I'm doing purple."
Yeah, basically. He's Samuel L. Jackson. He can do what he wants.
Goddamn right. And I mean, I was cool with the fact that they, and again, this is more for, Star Wars canon and lore. The end of the entire 9-movie series, Rey has a yellow lightsaber, and that is usually the Jedi Temple protectors. So in, my opinion on it, take it or leave it, it is their way of saying that she is going to protect the legacy of the Jedi. So I thought that was, a little cool Easter egg they threw in there.
So the one thing that I kind of love is that in Clone Wars, basically Anakin and Ahsoka have like a talk, and basically like Ahsoka's supposed to be a visualization of what the Jedi should be, like, actually doing the right thing, not falling into the political side. They're kind of like the do-gooders for the people. And Ahsoka always was, and that's why she left the Order, because she was like, you guys are getting way too political. Like, there was too many times the Jedi chose to go and save diplomats as opposed to helping the people on their planets. So for me, the fact that this would be 20, 30 years later, I'd really like to see what they do with Ahsoka. Do they keep her being that true-natured person, or is she going to be a little bit jaded at this point and kind of like, obviously she's going to be on guard. I mean, you had Order 66, and now you have a bounty hunter with a child coming to find you. Like, I guarantee she's going to be on guard. But the question is, like, once she kind of opens up, is she going to be kind of like the quote-unquote saint? Or is she going to be more of a Mace Windu? Like, I know what's good, but I have my reserved feelings about certain things.
Yeah, I definitely want to see her, I don't know, character development, I guess would be the easiest way to put it. I know I've said it before, but, how she sort of interacts with the Mandalorian world versus the Star Wars Clone Wars world, because it's a completely different set of people. It's a different set of, emotions and things that are going on, because it's, like in Clone Wars, it was Anakin, it was the clone troopers, it was the Jedi. Now you're dealing with a whole different group of people, which is the Mandalorians. And I know they were a huge part of, the Clone Wars, but this is Mando. This, like, he was an extremist. Basically, he didn't realize it, but he was an extremist in a cult. So that is, again, like we had previously talked about, his growth as well. So I want to see how they interact together. I want to see Bo-Katan's main, major roles and where she sort of plays out.
Absolutely. Like, for me, I mean, I really think that, like you said earlier, he has his moral code, but I think as far as Bo-Katan, she's pretty much a terrorist, in all honesty. I feel like for the greater good, he may be able to go along with her, but I feel like they're going to butt heads along the way, kind of like we saw in episode 3.
So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of like the 3 codes of the Jedi Sith and the gray Jedi.
Yep.
I am not completely.
All right. So basically the Sith and the Jedi code are like completely contradictory. I'm going to go with the first lines. The Jedi code is there is no emotion, there is peace. And the Sith code is there is peace is a lie, there is only passion. So basically one is saying don't let your emotions overrun you, and that's the Jedi. And then the Sith is saying let your emotions run free. Like, that is how we gain our power. And the gray Jedi code, which I thought was pretty cool, is there is no light nor a dark side, there is only the Force. Basically saying that there's not always going to be peace. You can't always run things with your emotions. So let the Force kind of guide you. And I think that's where Ahsoka Tano sort of falls, which is why she, like you said, Mark, is the perfect example of what a Jedi should be.
Yeah, no, like when it comes to the Gray Jedi, they basically say like, fuck both y'all views. We're just going to keep the peace. So to continue it, I actually have the entire code. So there is no dark side, no light side. There's only the Force. I will do what I must to keep the balance. The balance is what keeps me together. There is no good without evil, but evil must not be allowed to flourish. There's no passion yet emotion, serenity yet peace, chaos yet order. I am the wielder of the flame, protector of the balance. I am the holder of the torch, lighting the way. I am the keeper of the flame, soldier of balance. I am the guardian of balance. I am a Gray Jedi. So basically, their job is, hey, if the Jedi step out of line, we need to knock them down a peg to make them back even with the Sith. And if the Sith step out of line, we got to knock them down. So,
I mean, it makes sense. And I know the whole Star Wars lore is like, oh, there's the Jedi, so there has to be the Sith, and there has to be balance in each. But I don't see why the Gray Jedi couldn't be the referee in that fucking insane football game that they have going up on in space.
No, I completely agree there. Like, for the Gray Jedi, I just see them as kind of being like, we're just going to play right down the middle. Like, whoever's losing, we're going to jump onto their team. It was kind of like dodgeball, where you had all the like third graders on one team against one fifth grader, and the one fifth grader's just smacking all of them. And then next thing you know, like another sixth grader or the teacher jumps on like the third graders team to help overcome it. Like,
yeah, no, I mean that's I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. And I think that's the biggest thing is they don't necessarily want anyone to have complete power, because otherwise the Gray Jedi would just be regular Jedi and just overpower the Sith and then wipe them out. But I think that there needs to be that sort of conflict in the Force. You know, there needs to be good and evil, because that is balance.
I feel like even if the Gray Jedi did just try to just stick with the regular Jedi, with the code of the two, they will always find a way to have two Sith, the Master and the Apprentice.
the rule of two.
No way, the rule of two. Whatever. I was close enough. They're always.
That's what it is. The actual thing is the rule of two. There must always be one master, one apprentice, no more.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry, Jay. You get points for trying.
Hey,
Welcome to the show.
I'm trying my hardest.
That's all we ask.
Yeah, but still, even if the Gray Jedi did, they would still find a way, because you're not talking about, I want to say like younglings are these Sith people, or are the Sith like Master
That's why
Apprentice?
we killed them all.
Yeah, well,
All right, no,
they're not younglings as an apprentice. You're talking about, they always pull off the Jedi that they see has something that's just not correlating with the Jedi's way, and they can bring over to the dark side, who is just way too strong. Like we're talking about Anakin was the apprentice at one point before becoming Darth Vader. He was the master at his style of fighting, which was an all offensive attack. They say he was the best at it. There was nobody who could top him in his own style.
Yeah.
That's not somebody who's easily going down. And as you obviously see through all the movies, Darth Vader isn't an easy win. Palpatine just, I don't even know how to describe him anymore. The guy just didn't want to die.
I mean, they kept him alive on life support for God knows how long. That shit must have been expensive. His insurance was fantastic.
That is a fantastic insurance.
But yeah, I mean, so those are my thoughts. I know, your thoughts on the Mandalorian. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, I'm just excited to see where this journey takes us. I'm really, really, really excited that they didn't go the route of the sequel trilogy and run it into the ground, and they're actually kind of building my faith back into Star Wars.
I just want to see a great Jedi, so let's hope to that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys both. I share a little bit of both of that. I mean, I love the Great Jedi. I love the concept of it, whether it's directly canon or not. And Jon Favreau, we've had this conversation many a times over drinks, is one of my favorite directors. The man directed Elf, Iron Man, and now look at us. So you know, he's doing big things. So I couldn't ask for anything more. So thanks for tuning in, guys. This has been the Something Super podcast. Big news. You can now check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Again, I'm Steve.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Jason.
Thanks for listening.
Have a great